I think we're going to get this legislation passed.
Legislation aimed at removing high-income families from public housing is now in draft form, and it was all sparked by a Community Watchdog investigation. Good evening, I'm Sarah Diamond.
And I'm Josh Smith. Congressman Phil Roe intends to file the legislation soon, he says. He thinks it will pass with bipartisan support. In an update to his investigation, Nate Morbido found out the legislation would basically force over-income families to move out of public housing.
And here's how it would work. Anyone who makes 125% above the median area income for a year would have to give up their government apartment. In Johnson City, that means families who make as low as $48,000 may not be able to live in public housing after the first year. We previously found plenty of those people in our region and statewide. This summer, a federal audit sparked by our investigation found thousands of families making up to $1 million nationwide.
I really need to get in somewhere immediately, especially with me being pregnant and having a 3-year-old. I don't want to be homeless.
2.5 years after we found this mother and 200 other people on a lengthy public housing waiting list, Congressman Phil Roe thinks he has a plan to get some of the low-income families into emergency housing quicker. And it all comes down to kicking out so-called over-income families.
They don't need to be in subsidized housing that you and me and the taxpayers are paying for.
Although the Johnson City Housing Authority is no longer home to any high-income tenants, a federal audit requested by Congressman Roe found plenty of over-income families in major cities across the U.S.
Everywhere we looked at it, that they took a snapshot, that very thing you found here, they found there.
Congressman Roe calls his draft legislation a compromise in that it doesn't instantly force people to move out. Instead, he says it gives them a year to ensure their financial stability.
I feel like the current policies are working fine.
Housing authorities have previously opposed this premise, saying the egregious cases were outliers.
Just to evict them out of that community could be devastating to their family.
But the congressman says with 500,000 low-income families on waiting lists, every available unit is critical. Auditors found 25,000 units occupied by over-income families.
The housing authority is really in a bind. If they put these higher income people out and replace them with lower income people, they get less money to run their shop. But I'm sorry, but that's what it was set up to do, to help low income people.
Josh, in the coming weeks, Congressman Roe says he has a meeting set with a ranking Democrat in the House Financial Services Committee. That's Representative Maxine Waters. You probably heard of her, of Los Angeles, to try and explain to her why this legislation is a good idea. Federal auditors, by the way, found a family of 5 making more than $200,000 in her hometown of LA.
Now, this all started with the Johnson City Housing Authority, your investigation. What does the executive director, who we heard from in a previous interview there, what does he have to say about this legislation?
Okay, so Richard McLean has not seen the congressman's proposal, but he told me today he has concerns about evicting people because they are successful. McLean said that kind of decision should be handled at the local level on a case-by-case process, because he says every tenant is different and every tenant has different circumstances as well.
Nate Morbido. Nate, thank you. Sarah?